It's my first overnight shift at this decrepit gas station on the edge of town. As soon as I step out of my car, I get the prickly feeling on the back of my neck that means I'm being watched. I glance around nervously, but the parking lot is empty. Must just be nerves, I think. I go inside, flip on the buzzing fluorescent lights and start preparing for the shift. As the hours tick by, I can't shake the creeping sensation of eyes on me. I'm constantly peering out into the darkness, thinking I see movement, only to find nothing there. Around 2:30 a.m., I look up from the register to see a tall shadow near the edge of the lot. My breath catches when I make out the silhouette of a man in a hoodie, face obscured. Our eyes meet for a split second before he melts back into the night. The next few hours are torture, jumping at every little sound. As dawn approaches, I take out the trash, anxious for this night to be over. When I turn to go back in, he's there, right in my face. I'm frozen in place by the stench of sweat and cigarettes radiating off him. His yellow grin makes my skin crawl as he leans in close and whispers, "See you around." I watch helplessly as he disappears into the mist. Now he knows where I work, knows I'm alone and vulnerable. The fear sinks in that this is only the beginning. I can feel his eyes on me out there in the darkness, plotting his next move. The overnight shift will never feel safe for me again. I normally enjoy working the graveyard shift at this little gas station a few miles outside of town. It's eerily quiet out here at night, just me and the moths fluttering around the fluorescent lights inside. At first it seems peaceful, almost nice to get paid to sit here in the quiet darkness. But recently an uneasiness settles over me. I start getting the prickly sense that I'm being watched through the big windows while I read or organize the shelves. I'll quickly turn thinking I'll catch whoever it is outside in the act, only to find nothing but the wind rustling through the trees. By the third night, I'm jumpy at every little creak and pop, constantly glancing over my shoulder. It's almost 3 a.m. when I look up from scanning some supplies to see a shadowy figure standing just outside the glass. I freeze, breath catching in my throat. The man's face is obscured by a dark hoodie pulled low, but I can see a scowling mouth twisted into a creepy grin. We lock eyes for a heart-stopping second before he turns and slinks away into the darkness. The next night I'm on edge, half convinced it was just my imagination. But soon after 2 a.m., that sickening feeling of being watched creeps up my spine again. I walk cautiously from aisle to aisle, peering out into the night, searching for a sign of life. Nothing. Then I see it. A pale hand slapping against the glass near the door. Long, yellowed fingernails scraping down with an awful squeal. I stumble back, choking down a scream. When I look again, it's gone. Now I know this man is out there, toying with me. My hands shake as I consider calling the police, but what could they do? The night drags on in agonizing silence. I know he's waiting to make his next move. At 5:30 a.m., I work up the courage to take the overflowing trash out to the bin. The sky is just barely beginning to lighten as I step outside, breaths shallow. As I round the corner, his wiry frame comes into view, lurking by the perimeter. Before I can react, he's on me, clutching my arm with a vice-like grip. His rancid breath hot in my ear as he whispers, "We're going to have fun, you and me." I scream and wrench away, scrambling back inside. His chilling laughter follows me as I cower behind the counter waiting for sunrise. A bright light shines through the big windows. Another customer coming to top up some gas, I hope. A couple minutes pass, and I hear the shop's door open, and a deep voice calls out for a staff member. I stand up from behind the counter. The man that grabbed me is nowhere to be seen. I haven't worked the night shift since then, and I told my manager I never will again. I never would have taken this overnight gas station job if I'd known what was going to happen. It's a small, almost deserted place off a country highway outside of town. My shift goes from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. when the morning manager comes in. That alone should have been my first red flag. Something wasn't right about this gig. At first it was quiet and even a little peaceful being there by myself late at night. But over the past couple weeks, I've started feeling watched. It's subtle at first, just this prickly sense on the back of my neck like someone's eyes are on me. I'll whip around to check outside but never see anything. The other night though, around 2:30 a.m, I'm stocking the cooler when I swear I see a shadow pass by the window, out of the corner of my eye. I slowly walk toward the glass, and that's when I see him. This guy, dressed in dark clothes, hood up, leaning against a pickup truck and just staring straight at me. We lock eyes for a second before he turns and walks away, disappearing around the edge of the building. The next night I'm on high alert. I keep peering out into the shadows surrounding the dimly lit parking lot as I ring up the occasional customer. I try to convince myself it was just my imagination, but then past 3 a.m, I look up and see him again. The hooded lurker creeping between the pumps, never taking his eyes off me. My blood goes cold. This has gone on for over a week now. Every night he's back, getting gradually bolder, coming closer to tap on the glass, or pressing his face against it while I cringe and hide in the back room. I don't know what he wants or why he's doing this, but I'm genuinely scared to go into work now. The overnight shift fills me with dread. I feel like this creep's sinister behavior is escalating, and it's only a matter of time before this terrifying stalking goes from bad to worse. I'm afraid to find out what he'll do next. Working the graveyard shift at this dingy gas station off the highway, things can get pretty lonely and boring. But lately, it's been downright unnerving. For the past week or so, I've had this guy starting to come in every night. He's probably in his 30s, pretty ragged looking, with greasy hair sticking out from under a stained ball cap. He doesn't buy anything, just wanders slowly up and down the aisles, picking stuff up and putting it back down. All the while I catch him watching me out of the corner of his eye. If I need to step out from behind the counter, his head swivels to follow me. When I get ringing up other customers, I can see him in my peripheral vision, glaring impatiently until they leave. But he never gets in line to pay for anything himself. Once it's just the two of us again, the guy paces around muttering under his breath. Every time I ask him if he needs any help, he jerks away and won't reply. He'll stand there opening the cooler doors over and over, not getting a drink. This has gone on every night for over a week now. He's never done anything overtly threatening, but his presence puts me on edge. The way he just lingers here for hours without a clear purpose is deeply unsettling. Every time I hear that ding as the front door opens, my heart jumps into my throat. I feel his eyes follow me everywhere, and the silence between us grows more tense by the shift. I don't know what this guy wants from me, if anything. But the graveyard shift has become downright harrowing. Closing up and leaving feels like escaping some invisible danger. But I know he'll be back again tomorrow night, just watching and waiting as I count down the hours, helpless to do anything but nervously wonder what his true motives are. Working the night shift at the remote highway gas station always gave me the creeps, but I never expected real terror would come in the form of a relentless stalker. It started a few weeks ago, when a gaunt, unshaven man shuffling in after midnight. He'd slink around the aisles, pretending to shop but staring at me the whole time. This became a nightly ritual, his unwelcome visits dragging later and later into the early morning. Then he progressed to parking outside in an old silver sedan, observing me through the windows with unsettling fixation. I complained to my manager, but he assured me the guy wasn't harming anything. He didn't have to feel those eyes on him. Tonight when I left just before dawn, Exhaustion weighed on me. I just wanted to get home to sleep. But as I pulled onto the quiet street leading out of town, a car engine roared behind me, those familiar silver headlights in my rearview mirror. My pulse pounded as I took random turns to confirm my fear. He was following me. Memories of all those nights he watched flashed through my mind. I felt like prey being tracked. In a panic, I drove straight to the police station. I scoured the roads but couldn't lose him. Only when I pulled into the lot did he speed away into the darkness. Somehow, he'd discovered where I lived. The thought of that stalker anticipating my arrival there, waiting for me, made bile rise in my throat. I told the police everything. Concerned officers escorted me home, swept the premises, ensured doors and windows were secure. They began staking out the gas station in case the creep returned. Just 2 nights later, I got a call that they'd arrested him waiting outside my apartment. Apparently, he had a history of this terrifying behavior. Thanks to the police, my stalker's obsession with me has ended instead of escalating. I can finally breathe easy again. I was on a long road trip, driving through a desolate stretch of highway with nothing but darkness and a starless sky. My gas gauge was dangerously low, and my stomach was in knots as I prayed to come across a gas station soon. Eventually, the distant glow of neon lights appeared on the horizon, like a beacon in the night. As I pulled into the gas station, I noticed something strange. There was only one other vehicle there, an old, beat-up sedan. The place seemed eerily deserted, despite the flickering fluorescent lights above the pumps. I pushed my unease aside and started pumping gas. That's when I heard it, the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. I turned around, expecting to see another traveler in need of fuel, but what I saw sent a shiver down my spine. A tall man in tattered clothes and a worn-out hat was slowly approaching me. His face was hidden in the shadow cast by the hat, but I could feel his eyes on me, cold and calculating. I was on edge, but I figured he was just another weary traveler like myself. "Hey," he said in a raspy voice. "Mind if I bum a smoke off you?" I hesitated for a moment, then reached into my pocket and handed him a cigarette. As he lit it, he muttered something incoherent, and that's when I noticed the unsettling glint of a knife tucked into his belt. Fear surged through me, and I quickly stepped back, gripping my phone in my pocket, ready to dial 911 if necessary. The man continued smoking, seemingly indifferent to my reaction. The tension was palpable. I decided to break the silence. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Just take the cigarette and go." He finally looked up at me, his eyes gleaming with malevolence. "Oh, you misunderstand, friend. I don't want your smokes. I want something else." Before I could react, he lunged at me with the knife. Instinct took over and I managed to duck, narrowly avoiding the blade. Adrenaline pumping, I sprinted towards the gas station's convenience store, praying it was still open. Inside, I frantically told the clerk about the man with the knife. She dialed 911 as I watched through the store's window as the man retreated back to his sedan and sped away into the night. The police arrived shortly after, but they couldn't locate the man or his vehicle. They warned me to be cautious and advised me to continue my journey with extra care. I don't know who that man was or what his intentions were, but I'm convinced that gas station was a pit stop on his sinister journey. So, to anyone out there traveling alone, beware of deserted gas stations in the dead of night, for you never know who might be lurking in the shadows, waiting for their next victim.